In today's video, I'm sharing with you my winter holiday cards that I think turned out very pretty, and I can't wait to share them with you. It's a pretty easy process, but as you know, making handmade cards is a process, and you do it because you love it. If you are a handmade card maker, especially at the holidays, hopefully it's something that you enjoy. I certainly had fun making these cards, and I can't wait to share it with you. But first, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Autumn, and I do a lot of stamp carving, mixed media, watercolor and gouache painting, some fiber arts, and bookmaking. So if any of that interests you, be sure to subscribe. I'm very happy with how these cards turned out. I think the little shimmer adds just the right luminescence that just levels the card up a little bit. It's not too hard, and hopefully you'll be inspired. Now, of course, I will have all of the materials listed in the description below. All right, so I came up with this design by accident. Well, I came up with this design from playing. I was inspired by Allie Manning of Vintage Page Designs, and she has a video making a little fold-up book from a 6-inch square piece of paper, and this is what that is. I'm gonna leave a link for it below. You can watch her process on this. But basically, I had been playing with my 3 block prints, my leafy block prints, my series, and I had been using black ink, I think it was just black Stays-On ink, on top of finger paint paper. Finger paint paper is very glossy. It takes a print really crisply. Since it's coated though, it can scrape off over time. I was just playing, and I wanted to play with some colors and some markers. And the finger paint paper is fun to use with markers. I was just playing with this design and this set of markers. And I was using this set of markers. These are the Ecoline brush pen markers, and the color collection is called Botanic. And these are the colors. So I had these 3, I had actually all of these colors pulled out when I was playing with this little piece. But this one really caught my eye. I was just playing, it was very carefree, and it actually has faded over time, so the colors are not as vibrant. That does happen with fugitive colors. These are just water-based markers. They're not pigment, so they will fade, but I still love working with them. So I had these 4 colors in this design. I used the pastel violet in the background, and then I used the fur green. I also used the bronze green, and then I used the carmine for the berries. This turned out so fun that it inspired me to come up with this card design. So it's very basic. Okay, so I know I'm gonna be stamping on this 4x6 watercolor pad. So I'm gonna use my 4x6 index cards, which I use for everything. And I'm gonna actually, I think I'll just tape it to my work surface with double stick tape. Knock off some of the stick, just so it is a removable double stick. And then I'm going to do the same with my stamp. Now this stamp doesn't have any adhesive on the back. You can see throughout the years I've used it with double stick tape. This is where the sticky comes off and leaves the residue on the stamp. But I'm going to take my chances. I knocked off some of the adhesive on my sweater like you saw me do. I'm going to center this. And then it's a reference for me as I go to make my print. And I'm using Stays-On olive green, and I have the re-inker. I will stop and re-ink as needed. And I'm gonna test it out a little bit first. Now, I've already done several, and you can see that they're not perfect. But even the imperfect ones will be viable for making cards. All right, so my ink pad is well inked. I'm just gonna tamp the ink onto the surface of the lino cut, and then I'm gonna add more ink than I think I need to, just because I want it to be really, really ready to go. And this is a solvent-based ink and it dries kind of quickly. So if I'm stopping in between and talking like I am now, there's a chance that some of this has already started to dry up. And then I take my block, my watercolor block, and I look at it from the bottom. And I start at the bottom and I just press it down to the top. And then I make sure that I have complete coverage by pressing all over it and making sure not to shift anything, the stamp or the watercolor block. And then lift it straight up at an angle. That looks pretty good. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to remove this so that I can see better as I go to place on top of the print. Much easier. So after you get them all stamped out, and some of them are going to be perfect and some won't, that's okay, it doesn't matter. I realized using the purple probably wasn't a great idea because it was a little bit more involved. And since I did a few as a sample, I know what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to use the white background. Using the hot press watercolor paper is the best way to go. So I'm just going to come in with a real casual stroke of color for the bronze green. And I'm not ensuring that I cover all of the leaf because I do want to have a little bit of it to show through. I don't really know why. I just like that look. So I'll just come in. These markers can get loose. I think it's because they can be refilled. I'm going to have to investigate that and do a video on it because I do love these markers. So I'm just going to come in. If it goes outside of the line, that's okay. Since it is watercolor paper, I can come in with a wet paintbrush if I really want to. And I'll show you what that would look like. You know, I could come in and do a little bit of this. It's going to be another process, meaning that it will have to dry before I can add anything else. That's the advantage of water-based markers, is they will release and create a watercolor effect. So I'm just going to let it be very casual. I'm not going to get too worked up about it. So now I'm going to add my metallic paint. Okay, so I have this already to go and I want to add my shimmery paint. Now I've talked about Uli's watercolors before. She's on Etsy. I will leave a link below. Her paints are beautiful, metallic, handcrafted, handmade. She shows how she makes her paints on her Instagram and it's quite fascinating, but they're not cheap. And if you want to figure out which colors you want to invest in, she sells these little dot cards and it's a great way to figure out which color you want to order. And that's what I did with this one because it was number 24 and it had a blue-green kind of look and I love that. So I bought a half pan and this is what I'm going to use to add the little metallic paint on top of my design. So in order to do that, I just add with my pipette some water, a big bead of water, and I'm gonna let it sit here for a few minutes and then I'm gonna come back and make sure it's ready to go. And I'll show you how I paint the metallic accent on top of the leaves and then we'll finish the card. Okay, so while this paint is coming back to life, I'm just gonna add my little berries just right on the tip of the branch. And it's just gonna be a little circle. Okay, so I'm giving it a little stir. I'm trying to be careful. There's a lot of water on top of it. I don't want it to run down because she fills her paints up pretty full. So I'm just going to keep letting it get a little bit thicker. I think it's not quite thick enough right now. Yeah, I think that's good enough. So all I'm going to do is just put a little swoosh right on top of each branch, and it's just going to give it a lot more light and shimmer, bring it to life. Oh, I got a little speck right there. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm not gonna smear it. It'll just be a little sparkly speck. As this paint gets more hydrated, it will become thicker and more opaque, meaning you won't be able to see through the shimmer at all. It'll just be shimmer right on top. It just depends on how you want to use them. But with the marker underneath, it really does allow you more freedom. Oh, I got another speckle on there. Okay, so one more thing I've talked about this before. I keep my paints, my shimmery metallic paints separate from my gouache. I have specific paint brushes that I use that I keep in a particular can. I keep my paint brushes separate. I keep my water separate. It helps keep the sparkly away from my flat paints because I want to be able to control it more, and it does start encroaching. The shimmer, the glitter, the mica. And then I dispose of my water separately. I filter it through a designated coffee filter. I don't pour it directly down my drain. So you get the idea. I went a little crazy here, but that's okay. This one's a little messy. So it's just another reason to take your time and enjoy it, not rush it. So since I'm experimenting with the purple, I just did these two. I'm gonna see how it works. I painted these with Ferris wheel press inks. So these are the inks. I love them. I will leave a link below. I use a lot of these inks and they're my favorite. This is a mixture of Lady Rose and a little bit of the Little Robina. And so this one is this beautiful lavender color, which I love. I love this color so much, and I use it all the time in my fountain pen. I use this ink in my fountain pen, my Pilot Metropolitan, because I love using fountain pens, but that's a whole nother video, and I already did a video on this, and I will leave a link below. But this is one of my favorite pens, and it's my purple pen with my lovely pale lavender ink, and I just love it. No apologies for loving purple. Okay, so I've got them all finished, and now next thing I'll do is just glue them onto the cards. I'll use just double stick tape. It's easier and quicker. And also I've stamped some envelopes. I put a little shimmer on the real simple little stamp, and I put a little bit of holly on the back flap, just because I don't like sending blank naked envelopes. So I always add a little bit extra. Now I did try the purple. I love the colors. It's fun, but it's not as sophisticated looking. So I'm not gonna use it, but you have to try it and see what works. But I still like it. This, not a fan at all. The only thing I would think that maybe I could save it is coming in with another one of my more lighter colors from Uli, and maybe coming in with another color if I had a whole bunch of a certain color to come in and fill in the background. But that's a lot of work, and I'm not sure that it would even still look great. But again, it's an experiment that you have to try to see if it's gonna work. Also this year, I'm including a little gift in my cards, and if you want to see what that is, watch this next video. I'm really pleased with how these turned out. I hope you're inspired, and I hope you have a warm and safe and peaceful holiday season. I'll see you in the next video.